What is going on, wrestling fans? It's I, Steve Fall. Welcome back to 10 Count Media. On today's edition, it's a very special day because we're going to celebrate TNA with Wildcat. Chris Harris, how you doing today?
I'm great, Steve. How are you, man?
I am doing great because you're an OG, man. You're one of the originals on TNA, NWA TNA. Pardon me, because I don't want the historians to get mad at me about that. Let's talk about it, though, because what does TNA mean to you in your career? Because in reality, we're going to break down the first episode, but for you, what does TNA mean to you in your career, your life?
Oh man, I mean, at this point of my life or career, it was the greatest time in my life and career. Definitely the best of my career. Felt like I was able to perform at the level that I wanted to. It was awesome to be part of something from the ground up with some established stars, with some homegrown talent that have gone on to become superstars. It was special. And speaking on it today, it also means so much, the fact that it's still around. I mean, this was one of those companies that started and it didn't go away. And, it had some rocky times, but it's still around. It's still going. And it's thriving, probably the best it's ever been. So it's just, it's the best of my career and definitely one of the greatest parts of my life.
Now, what's interesting about this event is it happens in 2002. So let's do some math. June 2002, WCW and ECW were both purchased in 2001 of March. So in reality, there hasn't been a secondary wrestling company in over a year. I have seen over the years, at least this time around, everyone's trying to start up another company. Everyone's like, we can be the number 2 or we can beat WWE. How many times did you hear that in 2001 and 2002? Like, you must have heard so many rumblings of this company starting. We should all join.
Well, and it was one of those times where it made sense. You had those big three. When I was growing up, the big two, WCW, WWE, WWF, and it was almost it's just unheard of that WCW went down or was sold. So it was a tough time in the business, but it was also a great time for a lot of opportunities like that. And yes, you're right. Just like you had heard, I actually experienced a couple of companies that I was a part of that. You have the high hopes and all the promises, and it's like, oh man, this is going to be great. This is going to be your big break, and nothing, it didn't come to be anything. And so yeah, when I heard about the TNA starting up, again, it was exciting, but it was hard not to, you didn't want to get your hopes up. It was hard not to think, oh, well, what's going to be different about this one. But it was going to be different because just knowing that the Jarretts were involved, and I knew of Jerry's success with wrestling business, and Jeff I had respected and watched through his years. I had gotten to know Jeff a little bit with WCW, and so I knew a little bit about just knowing that him being the head of this thing, and so I knew that the opportunity was pretty good there, and I was already wrestling in Nashville on a regular basis. So hearing that it was going to be in that area, I thought, well, that helps out because I'm already here, so maybe I'll be one of those that they look at. So, but you're right. I mean, a lot of people went into it, and I would even go as far as to say that a lot of the big names probably assumed it was gonna fall. They were just there for, a lot of them were probably just there for a paycheck. But guys like me, guys like Storm, we were looking for an opportunity, and so we were ready to jump on anything.
Right. And if you look at the names that are in this, like, the Battle Royal itself, the Gauntlet for the Gold Battle Royal, you get these names. You got Ken Shamrock, Malice, Brian Christopher, you have Buff Bagwell, yourself, Devin Storm, Great Apollo, Jeff Jarrett, Justice, K Crush. K Crush is Ron the Truth Killings. You have Conan, Lash LaRue, Norman Smiley, Rick Steiner, Scott Hall, Slash, Steve Corino, and the Vampire Warrior, which is Gangrel. So in that group of people, you have more WCW and WWE wrestlers in this than original talent, say like yourself, who hasn't been exposed to national television yet. When you're here, you're going to be involved. What are your thoughts? Like, are you one of those guys trying to figure out how to get on the card, or does someone call you and says, "We want you on this card"?
Yeah, TNA was going to do a little test run in Nashville at an independent show, and Storm and I were both on that. So I think they, in some ways, they were maybe scouting talent, but they were also they were trying out the host. They were trying out the commentary team. I think that was the first time Don West was in front of the commentating booth. And Jeff was there. Jeff Jarrett was there, and it was after that match. Storm and I actually wrestled each other on that show, and after the match, Jeff said he'd be in touch. So I felt pretty good about it. And Storm seemed to think it was that night, but I felt like within just a couple of days, Bob Ryder, who did a lot of behind the scenes, he was in touch with the contract. So we were already signed to that first event. So I was just excited and happy that we were going to be part of it. I don't remember exactly when I found out what I was doing, but yeah, to find out I was part of the Gauntlet for the Gold, that was huge for me. I didn't expect an awesome showing in there. I was happy with what I had because I did see the names, and they were some big names in that. So at the time I was just excited to be part of it. I was excited to be in that match. And I was gonna do everything I could to show out as much as I possibly could in the time that I had in there.
So when you go backstage for this event, what is the atmosphere like? Because this is on pay-per-view, and you can pay $9.99 every Wednesday. Was the deal when NWA TNA first started? It was every Wednesday, $9.99, and you could watch a 2-hour pay-per-view. What was the atmosphere backstage like for you? Because again, Ken Shamrock, Scott Hall, Buff Bagwell, are you going up to them, asking them for advice? What was your relationship like with them that day?
The WCW guys I did know of. Buff I knew, and I think Scott was probably gone by the time I was there, and I was there that last year. But no, I mean, I was going up to the guys and saying hi, and if there was somebody that I didn't know, I would introduce myself, of course. And but I would say the general atmosphere was like, to me, it became. I already knew it was big, but the feeling became big when I got there because it reminded me of WCW, and of course, I'm trying to find a spot in WCW any way I could, but it was just that feeling. It was like, there was a lot of familiar faces, even with the production crew. It was a lot of familiar faces that I had seen with WCW. So, not to say it was a knockoff of WCW, but it gave me that feeling. It made me feel like it was a big event. It was huge. We were in a big building, and all the production that was going into it. I saw that it was, hey, this is big, and I'm a part of it.
Man, yeah. I remember it was covered like every wrestling website. Then there was no social media really. If you didn't go on a wrestling website to find out about this event, then you didn't know it existed. And to me, the word of mouth in wrestling always got the ball rolling for TNA because people wanted an alternative. We were done watching the same version of the WWE we've watched over the years. We wanted something new. And I think that's why TNA got a lot of love for, still does, but a lot of love in the beginning for whatever mistakes happen. Who cares? Because we're just happy you're here. And you got to be part of that. And unfortunately though, before the event even starts, the ring breaks. And that, you need that in wrestling, don't you? Now, you talked about the atmosphere backstage being, we're talking, we're hanging out, and it's WCW feels. What is the feeling like now that the ring is broken and we're about to start?
It's I mean, kind of like what you just said. It would only happen in wrestling. When we hear about that, and it was a dark match. So, but it was I think we may have done 2 dark matches, and it was the one right before we were going live. So we were minutes and seconds away from going live, and yeah, when that word gets around, or we witness it, I'm pretty sure I was probably at the front watching all this because it just just taking it all in. But yeah, when that happens, it's just you see people start scrambling and yeah, it's just one of those things where you got to just look up and be like, you got to be kidding me, like this is really going on, and there's nothing I could do, but everybody did start scrambling and if you've heard the stories, that it was right up to, I mean, they went live and you could still see on camera a couple guys, running. I think Don Harris was one of them, where he had done everything. I don't even know what they did to the ring, but they got it working and yeah, I mean, I know they had to switch a few things. I think they were going to somewhere in the middle, they were going to honor some of the past legends of the NWA, and I know they switched that to go on in the beginning so they could still, whatever final touches they had to do to that ring, there wasn't going to be any bumps being taken. So, just it's scrambling, it's wrestling. But it's a great story now when you look at the history of TNA, with just all the roadblocks and things like that. It's like, hey, have you heard the story of how this even got started and what happened? And but you know what? It's great to laugh about now, but man, at the time, and I'm sure I wasn't feeling near what somebody like Jeff Jarrett was feeling. So, but we made it through.
Oh my God. If I was Jeff Jarrett, I probably would have made up swear words because of how angry I was. But maybe you got to be calm. Maybe you'd be like, I got to be centered here because if I lose my shit, then this is going to go sideways.
A lot of people depending on him.
Yeah. And again, still to this day, TNA, as we record, is still alive and well in a relationship with the WWE. Evolved, as we talked about how TNA was invented to be an alternative. It got into bed with the I guess the enemy, if that was the case. Was that a thought though at the time in 2002? You're like, this is, because we talked about it, like, we don't know if this is going to go well. We don't know if this is going to be a weekly thing, a monthly thing. It's going to go on for 20 something years as we're talking about it. Is there a consensus of, hey, let's show them, as in WWE, like a big FU, like, we can do this, we're stable and the business is doing fine without you?
I don't think it was. From the get-go, and it's all the wrestling insiders that have made it out to be where we were competing with the WWE, and just, you've said it a couple times. I mean, we were going to be an alternative. And I've talked to Jeff many times about this, but you're not going to compete right off the bat, and there's a lot of people that right away they want that war like WWF
right.
or WWE and WCW had, and I don't think that was ever the intention. Yeah, we wanted to get out there and show everybody that another company could survive. I'm sure that was definitely, I'd say that was the feeling, that we were. I don't know if it was an FU to WWF. I'm sure they, Vince wanted it to be the only one out there, but no, we were just there. We wanted to be an alternative. We wanted to be another company for that could succeed, another company for wrestlers to have work. So I mean, that would be something I guess somebody like Jeff would have to answer. But as far as we went, we were just happy to be part of something and to show that something else could exist besides the WWE. I mentioned it earlier. When I was coming up, it was always WWE and WCW, and you had to be at one of those two to make a living. And what I learned through TNA is that the alternatives are okay. If I didn't necessarily get in this business to be rich or anything. I mean, I love that is part of it for a lot of guys, but the fact that I was able to make a living in TNA and make a good living, and I was able to live out what I wanted to do. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest takeaways I have from it, is that it's okay to, we're seeing it a lot with AEW too. It's okay not to be a WWE star. It's okay. You can still be a star. You can still make a living and make a good living. Even if you never, hell, there's guys making a living on the indies nowadays.
I know. Yeah. The whole world has changed, I think, in wrestling, especially just depends how you feel. Like, I think with wrestling, it's like sports, there's teams and there's rivalries. And I'm from Boston. So forever I'm told I'm supposed to hate the Yankees, but I'm learning like, well, is it because they're really good? Is that why we're mad at them? Like, is that, it seems like we're mad at them for that reason, but rivalries, obviously people like it. And maybe both sides do, because that creates more community, more investment in the brand, and also buying more product to show that you love them. And politics will show you that, and wrestling and sports, everything will show you, get on that team that you can support. And if you don't support me, I hate you, is how the world works right now. So, what are you gonna do? But though this night, though, what did you think of the name? Because you have NWA lineage, huge part of wrestling for as long as I can remember. Then you have the name TNA, which even on commentary, they make, a TNA tits and ass joke. What were your thoughts on that? Did you ever care for that name? Did you like it?
I would say in the beginning, I probably would rather have had something else, because the TNA obviously insinuates that. But that's probably what they wanted. They wanted people to know that. I mean, hell, we had females in cages dancing. So there was a part of TNA to Total Nonstop Action. As it went on, it definitely grew on me. I mean, to the point where when they tried to change it for all their reasons, it was like, no, it's TNA. It's not Impact. It's not anything else. It's TNA. And I hope it will forever be TNA, no matter what people think about it. I mean, I think they've already knocked down the door as far as, that nobody will sponsor it or, anything like that. But I would say at first, I was kind of like, oh, TNA. Oh. But again, I was just looking for the opportunity, man. I could care less what you called it. I wanted to be part of it.
You're like, so the check clears. I see women in cages, though. Interesting. But the check cleared, so we're good. It is so true. TNA. Yeah, TNA. What's the name? I'll chant it all day long. Yeah, and it was so much easier to say too, because I used to live in Florida, and I'd go to the Universal Studios tapings as time would go on, and I'd be there, and you would hear like someone would try to set another chance, like, it doesn't. NWA is hard to say out loud. TNA, super easy to say, quick and easy. And again, it brings back the nostalgia of yelling EC dub. And you can't yell WWE. You can't yell WCW. That doesn't roll off the tongue.
Right. I think ECW was really the only one that had that going. And TNA just kind of rolled. And from the early days, there was those chants.
Yeah. And this first episode, though, obviously they're trying new things. They're trying different types of things. We have the Johnsons, and the Johnsons are pretty much human dicks, penises. And I think it's hilarious now. And again, I get it at your mind then where you're like, well, I'm here. I'm happy to be here. Is there any thought of like, well, why are there two men dressed as penises here to wrestle each other?
Yeah, I mean, that was odd. You don't normally see that, but again, you have to just look at it like, okay, this is pro wrestling, and they're probably going to throw a lot on camera and just see what works. And I'm not sure who thought that would work. Maybe it with a little bit of push, maybe it could have. I don't know. You never say never in wrestling, but
yep, yeah. You could
have. That was interesting, but like I said, I mean, I just had the attitude. Of course, I'm there for the opportunity, but you've seen so much in wrestling, it's like nothing surprises you, and when you see the two grown giant penises, it's like, oh, okay, that's where we're going here. Okay, I'm in a company that's called TNA, so I mean, what do you expect?
That is so funny. I love it. I love your attitude. You're like, well, it's wrestling, and I understand there's me crazy. It's true. It's so true, because in wrestling we have seen so many strange gimmicks over the years, and we still love them. Like maybe at the time when you're watching, like, what is this shit? And then 15, 20 years later, you're like, this is the greatest thing. There's two guys dressed as dicks. But their names are the Johnsons. Like, this is the greatest thing ever. Richard and Rod are their names, by the way. Richard and Rod. And I got to say, you know, for the time, maybe people went, what's this? But now I'm like, this is amazing. You have Puppet the Psycho Dwarf. You have you have the Dups, who also are creating like this triangle love storyline within themselves, a little incest. You again, you have women in cages. You're called TNA. We are definitely trying things, but one of the biggest things I think on this show is, again, the X Division. The X Division, to me, defied everything, because the cruiserweights for WCW was what people were watching. You had NWO, yes, but you had the cruiserweights keeping your eyes on the television. The X Division, I think, did that because we've seen wrestling, but this was something completely different. Like, again, you have AJ Styles, Low Ki, Jerry Lynn, the flying Elvises. That's right. 3 people dressed as Elvises. Sonny Siaki, Jimmy Wang Yang, well, Jimmy Yang, and Jorge Estrada. And I love this, but what were your thoughts on the X Division? Like, because you're not a high fly in I guess, in the sense you do high fly moves to the top rope. But what were your thoughts on the X Division? Because it was completely different.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest, I probably just didn't understand it a lot at the beginning. Yeah, they were lighter guys and they were doing incredible moves, and but there's you couldn't take away the fact that it was exciting and the fans were loving it. And yes, I 100% agree that the X division is what really set TNA apart. You know, you were seeing, I mean, we see it every day on TV now. There's, you know, some type of this on each wrestling show. But back then it was just, I mean, and it was just, it took me by surprise too. I mean, there was the cruiserweights in that, and that's not really my style, and not even my style of watching the wrestling, but these guys were just doing something so different that, you know, it captured you, it took you in, and, you know, and the audience reaction told you right there that they had something special. And, you know, of course it was kind of built around AJ, but yeah, I don't think anybody was against that, because, you know, AJ was one of those guys. I'd known him from the indies, but he was one of those guys that could carry that. And, you know, the fact that it was centered around him, and I had seen, you know, just watching what AJ could do was just, it was amazing. So, yeah, I at the beginning, I would say that I didn't know enough about it. I didn't understand it, but yeah, each week that I was a part of TNA, I saw just how big that the X Division was and what it was becoming, because we were seeing some amazing athletes out there.
Oh yeah, the X Division and the tag team division, to me, were the standouts of the first at least 5, even 10 years of TNA, because we weren't seeing tag team wrestling in WWE. We were seeing like a random tag team win the gold, and then they'd fight like a random 2 singles wrestlers together, and they'd beat them, and they'd hold it for a day. And it was just a circle. And with TNA, you had X Division wrestlers who were doing crazy things. You had tag team division that was doing amazing things. But on this show, though, Toby Keith is also, you know, here involved. And to me, this is one of those like holy shit moments, because Toby Keith is no slouch. This man is a country phenomenon. He's a huge part of the country world, the industry itself. And at this time in 2002, he is one of the biggest stars in the world. Like, what were your thoughts when you're backstage and someone's like, yeah, Toby Keith is here, and there's going to be like a guitar spot, and someone's going to hit with a head with a guitar by Toby Keith? Like, what's your brain thinking?
Yeah, that was huge. I mean, to have a celebrity like that, it was, that was big, man. I mean, you know, just everywhere you looked, you were just seeing how big this event really is. And for Toby to be a part of this, and he was going to perform on it, and, you know, of course, they had the part in the gauntlet. I mean, it was great. It was exciting, and it was one of those things in a 2-hour period. You just had to give everybody a little bit of everything, you know, a little bit of tradition and a little bit of the X Division, this new style, and a little bit of celebrity. You know, it was incredible, man. It was incredible to be a part of it, and Yeah, I mean, it was awesome to be able to have Toby Keith part of it.
It's so funny because if you look at the card, it's 6-man tag team match, which is X Division. Before that, you did have all the NWA legends come out, and it's about a 20-minute segment of talking and celebrating them. And, you know, I would have chosen that way to start the show, but also it's not my money. And also the ring, I didn't know the ring was going to break before that. So clearly
Yeah, what's supposed to be like that?
Yeah. Clearly you mentioned that it wasn't supposed to start like that. Then you had a midget match. Then you had tag team wrestling. Then another tag team match. Then you had the gauntlet for the gold. Throughout this night, you have backstage segments with Psycho Dwarf in the can. You have segments with just everything over it all. Though when you're in the ring, like in this gauntlet for the gold match, it's 30 minutes, and it's again the biggest stars in the world all together at once. Mentally, how are you feeling? Because to me, I think this is the beginning for everything for you. And sometimes for a lot of these people in the show, this is like their first and last moment here in TNA.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I knew it was going to be a big moment, and I just wanted to, you know, you're not singled out. I mean, unless that there's a part of that in the match, but yeah, I mean, it was just one of those things where you did everything you could to stand out and make people remember you. I was, I mean, this is kind of funny to look back on now, but obviously I was not one of the big names in there. I was, you know, one of the younger talent that they were going to put out there and see what happens. I happened to be during my entrance happened to be during Toby Keith's spot in there. So me entering the ring wasn't a big, you know, oh, who's this guy? Or I remember him from WCW or anything like that. It was, you know, Toby is on his way to the ring. So eyes are on him. So I don't remember if I knew it was going to work out like that. It doesn't matter. I mean, I still was running to the ring as if all eyes were on me. But it's just funny that it worked out like that. But you know what? If I was putting the show together, I'd probably do the same thing. I mean, you don't want to have Toby walk into the ring while Scott Hall's making his entrance. You know, so you know, I get it, and but it's funny that it was like that, and I was in there a decent amount of time. So, but no, I was feeling good. I was I mean, physically, I was in shape. I was ready to go. I was young and hungry, and my mind was. I'm sure I was. You know, all of us were probably nervous, but it's a good nervous. It's a nervous where I'm ready to perform, and I don't care how many people are out there. You know, I'm ready to go out there and just do everything I could to you know get noticed, and hopefully the higher ups were going to notice something too and do something.
Well, also the ring didn't break while you were in it, so that to me is a plus. All around situation there. Brian Christopher does toss you out of the gauntlet for the gold, and in the end, Kent Shamrock becomes the first in TNA NWA world champion. And they stripped Dan Severn of the championship. He was the champion, but then they stripped him of it because he was going to be involved with this event and then wasn't involved with the event. And I guess what are your thoughts on that? Where it's like, yes, NWA did exist, but it did not have the clout that it once did. And so stripping Dan Severn and giving this organization a new, you know, hey, let's use the NWA to kickstart this thing and use a different name next to it as well as TNA. Like, what were your thoughts on using NWA's lineage as the way to really set this whole motion and stripping Dan Severn and giving Ken Shamrock the gold?
I was actually pretty happy about the NWA being aligned with it. Now I wasn't sure how it would work with NWA TNA. That was something different, but it was kind of it did what it was supposed to do. You know, we had the lineage with NWA, and there was a history. And yes, it wasn't as big as it once was, and we knew that. But that was kind of the opportunity that we had here is to let's bring it back to the forefront where it can be the big three letters again. And while it's being focused on again, you know, we do have the history where we can say that, you know, lineage with the titles or the superstars that have been through before. And so I loved it because it made me feel part of history. But on the other hand, with doing the letters together, it was also given an opportunity for a new company like TNA to get a good start. So I thought it was a great pairing. As far as the titles go, I don't know how familiar I was with what was going on behind the scenes.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure that from what I understand from hearing stories from Jeff, I'm pretty sure they did try to have Dan a part of the show, and for whatever reason, it wasn't working out. Yeah, I can't really speak on that. I'm pretty sure they tried to have him a part of it, and it didn't work. So it was one of those things where TNA and NWA had the deal. So you can easily replace somebody. We know that in wrestling. So I guess that's what caused for the strip. We were just gonna crown a new champion, and in my opinion, who better than Ken Shamrock? I mean, he had star power. He had the history of we know his. More than anything, to me, it was legitimacy too. I mean, for Ken Shamrock to be our first world champion, I mean, who's going to argue with that? I mean, it puts a superstar on top for our new company, and it also adds the believability to it. I mean, it's Shamrock. It's believable that he is the top guy in the company, and he's the badass, and he's the best, and so I was 100% on board with that. I thought he was great to represent the champion.
Yeah, no, I agree. Ken Shamrock, I love Ken Shamrock. So he's one of my favorite people in the wrestling business, and he's so kind and so generous, but yet he is the most dangerous man. And he was the first ever NWA TNA world champion. From rings collapsing to men's dressed as penises to Ken Shamrock winning the championship to you making your debut at TNA, it's a historic event. It was June 2002 on the 19th. You can watch it on YouTube, I believe, for free right now. So in reality, go check it out. For the history,
if it had come down to me and Shamrock in the end, it would have been a different story. But that's
of course,
that's how it worked out. So I'm happy for Ken. But yeah, it would have been would have had a whole different new company.
I blame Malice for that. That's who I blame, but that's it's a fight for you, Malice. 20 years later, you can do that if you'd like to. Yeah. But in reality, though, the Wildcat, Chris Harris, thank you so much for sharing your experience today on the first ever NWA TNA event. Because again, in today's world, TNA is working with the WWE. It is on top of the world. It's doing its thing, selling out everywhere it goes. So in reality, without you and the rest of the gang being part of the first episode and making it a success, we wouldn't even be sitting here talking about this event. We'd be probably harping more about two men dressed as penises, but we will not do that. We will just move on and say, thank you so much, Wildcat Chris Harris, for being here, talking about TNA. I'm C. Fall. He's Wildcat. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time